Do you know what happens on Fridays around here? Fridays around here are feedback Fridays, and that means we're going to give you feedback on your paintings or somebody else's paintings. And even if you didn't submit a painting, you're going to learn from it. So stick around here. Today, we're also going to teach you some compositional tricks. Today, we're going to teach you one called the spiral composition. Hello. Anyway, we're going to review 6 different paintings. Let's see if we can make them better. Let's look right now at what those paintings are. We have a seascape, a cityscape, a cakescape, a roadscape, and a boatscape. All right. Oh, and a peoplescape, people at the bank. All right. Okay. So the key here is when you watch, you start seeing things in your own paintings. You'll see problems in your paintings. You'll see where you're doing a good job. You'll see what's leading the eye. You'll see what's taking the eye away. A critical part of learning is getting feedback because we can't see our own mistakes. We can't see what's drawing the eye or distracting from the painting. So I learn better when I'm looking at other people's paintings being critiqued because that way I'm not being defensive, right? So you can get a clear picture through the eyes of others. So let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes.
Welcome to Art School Live. We are happy to be here as the publisher of Art Magazine's newsletters, a competition judge, and an artist coach, and an artist myself, decades of painting. Sometimes I can see a problem or two and correct them. Sometimes I can't see any problems. I think we're going to have that problem today. There's some really good paintings in there. And at least maybe I can provide a different perspective. Now, the rules are, in painting, there are no rules. Well, sometimes there are rules. Anyway, but the big rule here is be kind, be gentle, be loving, be constructive. Don't tear people apart because you don't know if that's going to be the last thing that you do that leads them away from painting. We don't want that. Remember, everybody's at a different stage. I had an early instructor tell me I should give up. Thankfully, I didn't because we wouldn't be here today. Just saying. Anyway, nothing here is personal. Everything's an opinion. A lot of different people are going to have a lot of different opinions. But the key is when we do this, I want you to look and say, what would I do? What do I see? Now, a lot of you have been watching for a while and you know what I'm going to say because I always say the same things over and over and over again. Little variations on it because it's always the same 3 or 4 things, but not always. Well, mostly. Okay. So make sure you go into the comments, tell us where you're watching from because I cannot look at paintings and provide feedback and get into the comments, but keep it constructive. If you want to submit paintings, go to streamlinepublishing.com/feedback. And if you make changes after hearing the suggestions, if you're not too mad at me, send them to us by email. Send them to Amandine, Amandine, Amandine at streamlinepublishing.com. Okay, that's my producer and very, very capable assistant. Okay, you guys ready? Let's do this. What's first? Oh, we have this really, really beautiful seascape. And the first thing I like to do is look at it in black and white. The black and white tells me a story because sometimes they say value does all the work and color gets all the credit. If you look at this in black and white, it's quite a bit different. And the things that you see are the things that you see things differently in black and white. Let's just put it that way. So this is by Brent Maugal in Massachusetts. Congratulations, Brent. Beautiful painting. So I'm looking at this and I'm liking it a lot. But in black and white, the first thing I'm asking myself is, where is the darkest dark? And I think the darkest dark is right in here. Okay. Now let's look at composition. I will talk about darkest dark in a minute. So let's go dead center and let's go dead center. And Brent, we've got that horizon line dead center. And typically what you want to do is have a high horizon or a low horizon because a high horizon, let's say you had a low horizon, you could get more cloud. right? If you had a high horizon, you could get more water and more beach in here. But if you have a center horizon, typically that tends to bore your audience. Not always, sometimes it works, okay? You're certainly not boring me here. Now, the other thing I like to do is what I call the tic-tac-toe board, which is equal thirds. It's actually based very close to the Fibonacci sequence and some other compositional tools. And typically what you want to do is find one of these quadrants would be where you put your focal point, your primary focal point. I'm not seeing a primary focal point here. I don't know where you're trying to take my eye. In a black and white version, this is a lot of white, right? A lot of white. And this is what you would call a high key painting. And that's good. That's fine. It's a bright, sunny day, I suppose. Maybe. We'll find out maybe a little bit more on this if we look at the color version. But where is the darkest dark? I said it's right here. But usually the darkest dark, the sharpest edge, the brightest chroma is going to be in your compositional spot. But also you want to have some good darks in some other spots, especially far forward, because as darks go back, they are not as dark. They recede, and you want to trick the eye. So if you have a darker area here and less dark in here and less dark in here and a little less dark there, it will trick the eye and make it go backwards. And so if we had a darker dark maybe in here, got a pretty good dark in here in the water, and that's pretty good, but it's not as dark as that. So this could be darker than that. That would help quite a bit. But I'm seeing a lot of white. My eye does not know where to go. It's just I'm seeing a big, big thing of white here and a big thing of white here and a little bit of a big thing of white here. And so my eye is not exactly sure where you want me to go. Now, in the color, it's going to change that. But in this particular case, I don't know. So you've got kind of a partial zigzag going. We like diagonal lines because they create energy. You got a diagonal line here and here, and you've got this. If you had figured out a way to kind of bring the eye back here, and let's say your focal point were back here somewhere, then you'd kind of lead the eye in, right? That's kind of a zigzag composition. So let's look at the color and see what happens. Okay, where is it? There we go. Okay, well, this is really lovely, Brent. This is really nice. I am still seeing some of the same issues, but it's not quite as prevalent. But I'm seeing, it looks to me like, I can't really tell, but it looks to me like this is sand. And this is obviously a different color sand. It's in the light, but and then I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the water obviously, and then the clouds. I think the clouds are where you're trying to draw the eye. I don't know that for sure, but if this were, let's say, if we composed this with a low horizon, maybe we compose a low horizon here, then we can get rid of some of this in here. And then we would have more room up on top to put more emphasis on the clouds. If we were going to put our clouds in here, I guess this is a focal point. So if that's the case, we want to put all the brightness there, some good darks, some sharp edges, and we want to kind of reduce this down because this is drawing the eye away. So in that scenario, what I would probably do is look for a couple of options. First off, I might try to get some more of this water in here and maybe zigzag it to break up some of that light. And I might even get some of this brown in here. Now I might, I'd probably make it a little lighter as I go back, but I don't have time to do that. And then, you've got a bright spot here, bright spot here, bright spot here. And so let's get rid of some of these bright spots because I don't think they're contributing to anything here, right? So let's just kind of cover this out because it's taking me off the edge of the painting. And these back here are kind of taking me away. You might want to just have it little subtle ones. And this one over here is taking me out of the edge of the painting. So what I want to do is I'm going to even reduce down the white and the bright spot over here because I want the bright spot to be right over here by the by the focal point. So maybe we're going to pump up the light over here on this, and, you know, really look for a way to do that right around the focal point. And then you want to look for a way to really pump up that light at your focal point. I like orange clouds, but I think you've blended a lot. They're really beautiful, but I would consider really pumping up the light somewhere in here. And the rest of this can stay kind of how it is. And then you could get a good, you know, get some more of this good dark right up against that light. And that will help it pop just a little bit. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. Anyway, really nice job on this. It's really lovely. And I think if we could just make a couple of changes, get some of that brightness out of the front, it might just lend a little bit more. It's right now I've made it pretty busy. I would have to go in here and soften this up and soften some of this up in here and soften up, you know, these dark areas, because I don't want it to be too busy. Anyway, all right, let's go to the next one. What do we have next? Oh, I like this one a lot too. This one is a street scene by 𝗪𝗵𝘁 in British Columbia. Okay, German, congratulations. This is really lovely. I like this a lot. And I'm not sure that there's much of anything wrong with it, quite frankly. It's very well executed. I've got questions that I'm going to ask about this in a minute, but let's look at this first off. Let's just try compositionally. Okay, down the dead center. Well, not really anything problematic. We've got this line in here, but that's perspective line. It's going down, and I think that's fine. So let's look at our equal thirds, and now, okay, 𝗪𝗁𝘁, 𝗪𝗵𝘁, you have done a great job. You've got your car right in here around a focal point. You have either a secondary or tertiary focal point. You could, in theory, move this car up here and soften it up, and that could be a third focal point. But you always want to have one primary. And the question is, which one of these is your primary? If you want to make the car your primary, then you want to look for a way to pump it up. And you've got the headlights there. That's a good way to pump it up. And then you want to soften this just a little bit. Soften this stuff back here just a little bit. Let's see how you've softened it all back here. Not that much, but soften this a little bit so that you've softened it nicely in here. And that's because you've kind of intended both of these to be focal. And I think that works pretty well, quite frankly. Let's look at our darkest dark. Where is our darkest dark? I'm squinting. I'm seeing a dark here, a little dark here, dark here, dark here. There's your darkest dark right there. And that would mean that's what your intent would be, to bring all the attention. So again, because you want things to recede a little bit, now it's kind of a foggy, rainy day, but you might want to consider, okay, what could I do to get a little bit more dark far forward? Maybe get these darks in here pumped up just a little tiny bit more, so that the other darks go away. This one's a little closer, actually. You get that, and then maybe you can find a way to get a couple of spots of dark far forward so that they make those darks in the distance really recede. And then I would take this dark back here that's on this building, and I'd probably knock that back just a little bit. See, that helps quite a bit. And then maybe knock some of these other darks back just a little bit. And that way, you've also got, look for things that are drawing the eye. This over here is drawing the eye. Right there, that's drawing the eye. I would just get rid of that. And the rest of this is pretty good. You got a bright spot here. That's okay. But I would kind of gray that back, and that will help. You've done a beautiful job on this. Let's look at the color version. Man, I like this painting. Wow, German, you are doing a great job. Okay, so all the things we talked about, this dark is showing up a lot to me. It's standing out a lot. It's not a problem. That's purple. It goes back into the distance, but I might lighten that up just a little bit more along this tone in here, okay? And this doesn't bother me so much in here now because it doesn't stand out so much in the color. These yellows right in here, they're kind of drawing my eye away, and that's still drawing my eye away. So I would maybe mute those back just a little bit. And then I would really try to pump up my colors right around this car. So, you know, maybe what you do is just, you got a little bit of a halo. Get the 𝗙𝗵𝗶𝗆 video on painting sunsets. It talks about how light works. And if you can get a little bit more color in there and just help that reflection, that'll help a little bit, right? That just that alone. And then you can get a little color around these headlights. Amazing how little things like that make a big difference. And so there, and you could even potentially, if you wanted to, you could go red, right? You could get like if you had the red light, or maybe there's a red light there, you know, maybe there's, just shows a little bit of red. That way you're getting some variety around your focal point. And then, you know, if your intention is not to make that your focal point, then what I would do is look for a way to get some light up in here. And maybe what I would do is I'd put a light on that clock tower, right? Maybe I'd do something like that, as if, you know, there's some lights up there. I might even light up part of this in here. And then I would reduce all that down. But, you know, this is an A+ painting. Good job on that. Congratulations. What's next? Cake. Let them eat cake. All right. Well, this is from Jonathan Pierce in North Carolina. Jonathan, congratulations. Really nice. Okay. I don't know where to begin. I've never critiqued a painting of cake before. So, but it's making me hungry. Okay, let's first off go composition, straight across and straight down the middle. We're pretty close to down the middle on this thing here. And straight across, we don't really have much. We got a little bit of a bottom of the cake here. So I think we're cool there. Let's look at compositionally here and here. Nothing. The cake is dead center and the ball is dead center and this is dead center. So I think what I would probably do is look for a way to do something to make this not feel so dead center. Maybe it's cropping it a little differently. Maybe not that much because you want to show the edge of the thing, but maybe cropping it a little bit differently. And that would change things considerably. So when I look at this, I see all this light, but what do you want to draw attention to? I'm thinking it's either the glass, which is beautifully rendered, or it's the cake. Now, in my case, I want the cake, right? So I want this cake to be under like a giant spotlight. I want to really make that cake stand out. And the problem is all this other light is really fighting it. And so you've got all this light down in here, all this light in here. I know that's what you saw, and I know that's probably what your reference was. Got all this light back here, but is that really going to help sell it? Or could you do something more? Could you look for a way to just make all this light just disappear? I know you worked really hard on this. You're going to hate me for doing this, but let's just look at what happens when we reduce some of this light in this thing, okay? And let's just say maybe we don't have to get rid of all that brightness, but let's just reduce it down. I know that's probably a reflection in there, but I think if we just get rid of this brightness, I think, quite frankly, I would probably just really make this all just I'd make it really soft, kind of like that last painting. Just make everything really soft in the background, because what you want to do is make this thing just stand out. That's what I would want to do. Make it stand out and get, some good darks in there around your thing. I would even mute this back in here just a little bit more. Mute it back. I know that's color. And I think, quite frankly, this dark gray just needs to be a little darker gray. So just think what happens to this when you change all of this. Now all of a sudden your cake becomes the movie star, right? And all this other stuff doesn't really matter, right? What you're trying to do is a painting of a cake. And then, I can't really tell, I know you've got a reference image, but, look for a way to bump up this cake, make this cake stand out as, find a way to get some light on this cake and really make it stand out. And the way to do that is probably with get a good dark in there as well against some of that light. And that will make a big difference. So let's look at the color version though. All right. Well, this is, man, carrot cake, really yummy. Okay. So another option on this is just to go soft, right? And that is just to soften all this stuff in the background. Now this, I'm softening, just trying to get rid of some of those edges in there. I still would rather have it darker, but the color does help. At least now you have the soft edges and it feels like it's in a kitchen. I don't know what's going on up here. I think this is supposed to be a shadow. I would consider making my shadow kind of a bluish color, even though it's on, it's on a piece of wood. Maybe it's I don't know. I tend to put a little brown or whatever into my shadows if it's a piece of wood, but I don't think that I like the fact that shadow is angular. I would probably make this more angular to try to break up this painting, but I still would get rid of all this white because I think that white is just really hurting you. I'm trying to find a color that I can put in here that would just be a little bit lighter, but just break this up. And then I think that, you've got pretty good rendering on this glass, very good rendering as a matter of fact, but pump up your bright spots a little bit more. You've got a couple of bright spots. Make sure you don't overblend that stuff because when you look at a glass like that, it's really going to stand out. And then pump up your bright spots on your cake, just maybe in one particular spot. And then I would, otherwise, I would probably just kind of make this plate in here just a little bit shadowy. Anyway, it just makes it stand out more. So if you look at this makes it stand out quite a bit more. But if we want to watch this again, what we did before, we're just going to take and we're going to get rid of this window and just look. I mean, there's a light source because it's in light. Just by getting rid of all this stuff, look what happens. It just makes this thing pop. And that's the goal, is how can you make it pop? Now, the other thing that's bugging me is we have a lot of space, Jonathan, got all this space down here, but we feel cramped up here. It's like you didn't think that through in advance. So if you just moved everything down, I'd move it down and over to one side a little bit. So you've got, this is kind of your composition here, like that. Or maybe just slightly off center, or maybe over here a little bit. And I think that could make a difference. That's a nice painting though. Good job. Okay, what's next? Oh, I like this one too. I'm having problems today because you guys are doing such a good job. This one is from Mary in Maine. All right, Mary, this is a beautiful painting. Congratulations. I can't find much wrong with it, quite frankly. And I like it. It feels good, makes me want to be there. So let's play composition games. First off, we'll go dead center down the middle, and we're going to go dead center. And we got a line going across here, dead center. I would watch for that. This is not a problem on this side. Let's do our equal thirds. I have my formula. Okay. There's not anything that is in one of these compositional spots that is going to really draw me in. So what I would probably do is try to figure out how to make that road come around like this. And and, do that up here. But I can't tell, is this about the road or the tree? I think it's about the road, but I don't know for sure because there's spots of light. It might be about this bright part of the composition here. In terms of your darks, where's your darkest dark? Right here. Maybe a little bit here. So one good, really effective thing you can do, it's a pretty good trick, is you can get a really good dark at the base of a tree, because trees tend to get darker at the base, and then as they go up, they become less dark. But you can, if you want to get a good dark in up front, and then you can get a nice dark shadow, around that tree. I don't know which way the light's coming from. I guess it's coming there from that, based on that. So you get a good shadow going across this tree. Get some good dark up front, and that will help. And then you might want to reduce these darks down a little bit in the back because they're a little bit dark. Let's look at the color. Man, this is really nice. Really, really good. Okay. So now I can see things differently. There are a couple of things. I'm not going to talk composition now. We talked about that. But there are a couple of things I'm trying to understand. And that is, where do you want the eye to go? And where is the light coming from? Now, the light appears to be coming from here, right? Because of this shadow. This shadow, what's bothering me is the light feels like it's coming from here, and maybe it is, because the top of this is in light, but this side, the side is in light, this is in light, this is kind of in light here. So I think you got to be really careful about those little signals. So if you take this tree and you just make it so that it's a big shape and it's not so much in light everywhere, that's probably going to help. Big shapes, all right? The other thing I would do is I'd pump up that shadow, figure out what the shadow color is across this road, and, get that shadow just a little bit more. And you've done a nice job of keeping your shadows transparent here. I would make them a little bit bluer personally, but that's just a preference thing, right? So I think shadows tend to be blue. I learned a lot about color from 𝗙𝗵𝘁, may she rest in peace. She won last year's Plein Air Convention award. So if you make these a little bit bluer, and I'm probably blue with a little bit of that brown in it for the road, that will help it read like that. The other thing is, on shadows, you've got some really sharp edges. Now, cast shadows have pretty sharp edges. But you can also look for, with a shadow, what you want to do oftentimes is have a softer edge. Let's see if I can do that. Softer around the outside of it, maybe sometimes on the inside of it. So see how that reads like shadow right there? So if I just soften up these edges a little bit, soften up these edges in here, that makes a big difference, right? It just makes it feel more, it can still be soft and be a hard edge shadow. Just don't want to make it too super soft, right? So that will make a big difference. Also, the other thing that is bugging me a little bit is this road is just perfect. And maybe it's a sidewalk and so on, but I like to just take little opportunities to just break things up a little bit. Even if the grass is growing over something somewhere, it's that way, it's not so perfect everywhere. And that will help break it up for the eye. You've got a big sharp edge here in here. So what I would probably do is bring that shadow into here a little bit, break this edge up just a little bit. And then ask yourself, why do I need this in front? If this is so this doesn't feel like, here it needs to be darker because it's in shadow. And you got the spot of light here. I'd lose that. Where do you want to take the eye? If you want to take the eye up here, then I would probably lose most of this in here. Keep this all in shadow because you don't want you could have little spots of it. And even though you've got that nice little thing of green there, you know, the reality is we're really trying to show what's happening up in this area up here. And so this is kind of taking the eye away. And then I'd also look for indications of light. So I like to put little spots of light. You know, if you look at branches are sometimes just have little spots of them, rarely ever the whole branch. And you can look for little spots where the light is peeking through, and just to kind of give yourself a little indication of light. Okay. Anyway, I think it's really beautiful. I want, when I go down a path like that, I want something at the end. And so I might consider looking for a way to let's just look for a way to open this up down here. This is just a preference thing. It's not a must, but I like, it's like, okay, there's something down here that's getting me excited, and I wonder what's back there, right? And so you can sometimes use this idea of a portal. And so now you've got something down here, and you could have some kind of an object, a sailboat or something in the distance, and maybe there's an ocean in there, so you could have a little bit of ocean going across there. It's like, oh, that's nice. There's some light in there. So you could, just little things to kind of make me go, oh, that path is leading me down there. And look, there's a sailboat on that ocean right there. Now, all of a sudden, that just pulls my eye through. See how that works? Okay, really nice job on that. Congratulations, Mary. Okay, what do we have next? We have another marine, well, not another, but we have a marine painting. Okay, very nice job on that. See if we can find it. Okay, so Mary, this is from Marianne Burton in New Jersey. All right, they're growing some good painters in New Jersey, Marianne. Good job. All right, this is lovely. It looks to me like it's watercolor. I can't tell in black and white for sure. Okay, so compositionally, so we kind of got that horizon line back here. And then look here, we got this sailboat mast almost dead center. It's not quite dead center. Depends on if the whole paper or if we end it here. But so that is something I would consider moving. All right, let's look at it from the standpoint of the tic-tac-toe board, equal thirds. I'm basing it on this edge. And then here and here. So you've got something here that could be moved up, or maybe it could be here, but you do something here to focal it. I would just move this over here and then have this mast go up here. And I think that would solve the problem. Not that it's a giant problem, but something to think about. The other question is, where's my darkest dark? If I squint down, I like the fact you've got a big dark back here. It's like a looming cloud, or maybe it's dark evening or something. I can't tell in the black and white. But I'd like to see, a little bit dark in the focal point. So let's get to the focal point here. Let's say it's this boat. Let's maybe just get a little bit of dark right in here on this boat, and then look for a way to get some darks up in the front somehow, or maybe on this dock, so it gets a little darker as it gets closer, so that you get that sense of recession. Otherwise, the darks are working pretty well. I'm going to look at the color because I like this painting. Okay, definitely, I think it's watercolor. So one of the things that's interesting is that this edge over here was really bugging me. And I know that, that's a watercolor thing for some people, but you've got three sharp edges and then this one edge. It just feels a little weird to me. It drew my eye immediately. So I would consider correcting that. And so let's just see what happens when we correct that. All of a sudden, now my eye isn't getting distracted by that. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, where do we want the eye to go, and what are we seeing here? I'm seeing something here. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the moon. Is it the moon coming over the clouds? Is it a light? Is it a lighthouse? I don't know. So it's a nighttime scene, and yet there are things that are in light, Marianne. And so I'm wondering how, okay, if they're catching light from over here, that's good. But let's figure out exactly what's going on here, because it's confusing my eye. The question is, what's this about? Is this about the boats? Is it about the lights? Is it about the reflection? And then what is this? I can't tell what it is. Is it a sail, a tower? I don't know. Don't know what that is. I guess that's a mast. So there's some things that are confusing me, and you have to ask yourself, what's your intent? Now, I would say that these lights are probably, I'm sure they're there, and they're helping light up these boats in here. So I would just look and say, okay, let's maybe mute these back just a little bit in here, because the reality is we don't want all this light, too much light drawing the eye. We want the light over here by the focal point, and then look for ways to pump up the light right around the focal point where the light is hitting it, if it's that yellow light. But you have over here this little boat here that feels like it's in full light, and yet I don't see a light source there. So to me, I mean, these little things bother me. I don't know why. So I would probably look for a way to kind of maybe mute this back just a little bit, maybe, look for a way to get, a sense of a little bit of light on it, but not too much. And then, same thing with some of this over here. This feels like it's in light, but I would make this sailboat your primary focal point. And so as a result, we're going to kind of pump up the edge of this and put the top of this, get a little of this light on this mast just down in here. And then I would probably look for ways to, I'm not trying to get this, I'm making a mess. Okay. I'd probably look for a way to maybe just get rid of that. I'd probably get rid of that because I'm not sure it's lending anything. Make this all about your focal point. And I would even probably consider, how do I get some of this muted back just a little bit more? And you don't have to put every American flag in there. You could, but what you want to do is make this painting kind of mute this stuff back so it's not taking the eye out, mute this down a little bit more, and put all of your emphasis on your focal point. That's what I would do. Anyway, enough about that. Good job on that, Marianne. Okay, what do we have next? Okay, people standing in line somewhere. I can't tell where. Okay, so this is from Tony Sherman in Texas. All right, Tony, congratulations. Nice job on this. I have a painting very similar to this that I did. I struggled with it, all those figures. All right, so I don't know what to tell you on this. I think it's well done. I will look dead center, and there's nothing catching my attention dead center. That's nice. Let's look at the equal thirds, and nothing catching my attention equal thirds except this woman's face. She's the only face we can see. Maybe this one we can see too. I like the fact that you have overlapped people, right? I think that's really important. That shows a sense of scale. But the question is, where do you want my eye to go? And I don't know. My darkest dark is here, a little bit here, and a lot of it, a little bit down in here. And where do you want my eye to go? Now you also have, and you've done this quite effectively, you have a lot of light in here, and you kind of pulling us in, making us look in there. And these figures are basically kind of silhouetted, but I can't tell what they're doing. I can't tell what it is. Is it a restaurant? Is it a line? Is it a bank? And the question is, what's this about? You've done a nice job on your figures, but where do you want to draw the attention? If I were doing this in tic-tac-toe board style, I would make it about this woman here. And if that's the case, then how do you make this your emphasis, and how do you de-emphasize all of this? Now, the other thing I want to point out is you've got to look for patterns, right? And so pattern is you got two, you got two, you got two. And so what I would consider doing here is eliminating one of these bodies completely. We'll just have a purse with a hand. And the reason is that this now gives a space. It also gives an opportunity to really put some light and emphasis around her face. And it just kind of makes it feel a little bit more comfortable. Now you've got 3 and 2, and I like that 3 and 2 combination. I think, this guy here, we want him, make sure that he's a little bit taller than she is, so that it doesn't look the same. And I think then let's look for a way to pump her up. Now we're going to look at the color version on this and see what that does. Okay, so you've done the right thing here in terms of pumping her up. And that is you put her in red, so she's going to stand out a little bit more. So let's just kind of go with our theme here, what we talked about. We're going to take this poor woman and we're just going to make her disappear. All right. And so she is gone, baby. She's gone. Right. And I don't know what we have in here, but let's just figure we've got something in here. Now we've created this space. And of course, we're going to have to figure out how to get rid of her entirely. Now she's gone. All right. Sorry, lady. I hope this wasn't your like sister-in-law or something. Okay. Now let's say, all right, we want to really draw attention to her. We want to mute these people back. The first thing I would do is I'd probably get rid of this white dress and make it so it's not standing out so much. And I would probably increase the color, maybe look for a way to increase the light on her, and maybe even pump up the color of the red, right? So maybe we have to get a much brighter color. You've kind of got that going on here, but maybe we just emphasize her just a little bit more. And then this guy's pretty muted back in the background. I would just soften him up just a little bit, because it creates some distance, soften him up. And I would probably take this black and reduce that to something like a gray, because I don't want to draw a lot of attention to it. I'd even consider making his hair a little bit less dark. And I might even kind of just mute back all this stuff here. This purple is drawing the eye, and that's okay, but let's just not draw the eye away. Now, and let's see if we can, make less attention to all these arms and things and more attention to the light on her. And so let's figure out, what's the color of the light on her? How do we really pump up the light on her face and really make her stand out somehow, and just do something that's going to draw attention to her, right? And that's what I would do. And then everything else just becomes a little less rendered and a little softer. All the stuff in the background, if you can make it in the distance, now I can tell it's a restaurant. It feels like a restaurant. So that's just what I would do with it. But anyway, nice job on that, Tony. Congratulations. Okay, do we have another one? Oh my, it's time for composition. All right, so let's talk about what's called a spiral. A spiral, we all know what a spiral is. A spiral is something like that. Now, you can use a spiral in a lot of ways, but the idea here is that you want to ask yourself, let's say that we created a focal point, and that focal point was here. So what can we do if we got our focal point here? What can we do to draw people into that? Now that's very similar to the Fibonacci sequence, which is all about that, right? So, and that is that let's say we have an arch here, and we have a figure here standing under this arch, and she's walking up to the arch, and say we have, something like this, and we have, let's say we have this is a bucket over here, and we have a light pole here, and we have, maybe another light pole here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a spiral. So I'm going to say, okay, what can I do to go from here to here to here? And maybe, so the way to do this is to put light spots on things. So you could put, let's say, I'm not going to use white because white won't go good on white, but let's say you've got a light spot on her here, and you got a light spot here, and you got a light spot here, and you got a light spot here, light spot here. So what you're doing is you're basically taking me around, you're drawing me to light spots, taking me around. And that, and you sometimes it's just a matter of a little tiny subtle light spots, maybe a little light spot on the edge of something. But that's why I'm so interested in light, because what happens is, if we go back to this one painting we looked at here, so if you have all these different light spots, it fights you. But if you have, let's say you want to get them here, and you spiral them up around here to something over here, and then to over here, that's great. So now I've got a spot here, and I got a light spot here, and I got a light spot here, and maybe a little light spot in the water. And then, the little spot here, and a spot on the edge of this boat, and then, big light in there. That's kind of the concept. All right. Makes sense? All right. We're done with composition. Okay. So last chance. I'm taking a group of people to Switzerland, and this is the last chance. I mean, literally, this is, I believe, the last day. We had a bunch of people sign up here at the convention, and if you want to go to Switzerland, this is it. We're going October 10th through 20. We're going to do Switzerland, and we're going to do Lake Como, and then we have a possible, if you want to join us, a Venice trip, Italy, paint in Venice for 3 or 4 days, and it's like a bucket list trip. Sargent, Bierstadt, even Sorolla. I mean, they all painted Switzerland. And Sargent went back several times and painted Switzerland. It's one of his favorite places to paint. We have figured out how to get the locals. We know where the spots are, and that matters, right? So we're going to go to some really great spots. We're going to tour. We're also going to stay mostly in the small towns with no, where you can only get there by cable car or by, I don't know, not even bus, no cars, no vehicles in. Imagine being in a town with no cars and painting in the silence and everything. It's going to be spectacular. So last chance, get in there, paintswitzerland.com. Okay, so what's going to happen next week? I think it's next week or 10 days from now. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I have my Paint Adirondacks event. There may still be time for you to get in. I don't know. It might be. Last I looked, there were a couple of seats. So you could do that. But the big one that I know there's still some seats on is my Fall Color Week retreat. And that's the big push now. That's where the fall color is going to be. Door County, Wisconsin is spectacular. It's very scenic. It's on Lake Michigan. Got lighthouses and big rocks and all kinds of color, lots of farms. It's really a lot of variety. We like variety. And it's going to be an amazing event, and that is fallcolorweek.com, September 28th through October 5th. If you want to go to Switzerland, then we're going to go from Fall Color Week right to Switzerland. Okay. Hey guys, make sure that you subscribe to this program. We would really appreciate that. It helps everybody, you and us. And just go to YouTube, hit Art School Live, and subscribe and follow me everywhere you go, especially because I'm going to be heading out on all these trips. As soon as I finish up my Publisher's Invitational, then we have Digital Painting Live. Oh, this is going to be so amazing. Digital Painting Live, some of the world's leading film artists, right? People who did things like Avatar, Lord of the Rings, Shrek. There's too many to mention. We have some legends who are going to be teaching. Go check it out. It's only $47 to attend. It's at Digital Painting Live, and it's coming up very, very soon. Digital Painting Live. Okay, guys. Got a free gift for you. The free gift today is 97 Incredible Art Secrets. It's yours. Just go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. It's video, instant streaming, and or DVD. If you want DVD, pay for the shipping, please. It's cheap. Okay, that's all we got today. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want to come back, we would love to have you back. If you're a first timer, say so in the comments. And make sure that you come. We're here weekdays, 12 noon, every weekday at 12 noon, and have been since COVID began, which is over now, thankfully. All right, guys, thanks. Bye.